Hello and welcome to Make It Work, the bi-weekly podcast where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their career paths whilst putting family first.
Welcome back to Make It Work Asia. I'm your host, Sarah Wong, and today our fascinating interview is with Carolina Yeo, a Singaporean mom of two living in Germany and founder of Motherhood, a talent platform that has enabled more than 4,000 professionals who have taken career breaks to relaunch their careers. Our conversation was wide-ranging, taking us from her early corporate life in talent management that brought her all around the world before becoming a young mom in a country where she could barely speak the language, and all this whilst working on her startup. Drawing from her experience of working with thousands of career relaunches in Singapore and Germany, Carolina shares insightful perspectives on the contrast between the two countries that impact career and family choices, and why she thinks fathers actually need more support as caregivers. Join us in our wonderful conversation today. Hi, Carolina.
Hi, Sarah.
Yeah, you're calling all the way from Germany, so thank you for that. Really excited to have you today. Let's dive right in. Tell us about your story under 2 minutes.
The 2 minutes is always a tricky one, but I'll try. So I'm Singaporean. I grew up in Singapore, studied in Singapore. My siblings, family, they're all based there. After graduating from college, so Singapore Management University was my alma mater, I decided to learn about the world and then went on my first traineeship in Belgium, and that was 20 years ago. So this year I celebrate or commemorate my 20 years outside of Singapore, and spent, the next 10 years traveling a lot for work across different countries, including Belgium, Austria, as well as Abu Dhabi, some period of time in France, and then also in China. And now the next 10 years in Germany. I'm a mom of two. So I have two little girls, ages 8 and 6. One of them has her birthday today, so she turns 8 today. So it's been an interesting personal and life and career journey in the last 20 years.
Amazing. I know your story from beforehand, and I was amazed at kind of the globetrotter you were. After you left Singapore, it sounded like you met your husband, who is Indian, in China, and you all decided to somehow make a home in Germany. And now you have started your own business. You started a few before this. So I think you have an amazing story that probably can be written in a book one day. But maybe if we can just get a slice of your life today, what does it look like? And also tell us about the business that you're running.
Yeah, so look, I mean, the career journey and life journey for me, it has not really been planned. Like what people think, when they hear the journey so far, it's really, a matter of curiosity, following one opportunity, then the next, and then figuring out we need to start a family. And 10 years back, when we decided to start a family, I had a role that required me to be based overseas, away from my husband, traveling also sometimes 70% of my time. And that was not very conducive. And at the same time, my previous experience leading different teams in talent management for large multinational companies such as AB InBev, and also another construction engineering company that I joined after, was a fantastic adventure. But, I was also reaching kind of the ceiling of where I could grow and that I would like to grow as well in the area of talent management. So I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My father was was and is an entrepreneur back in Singapore, and I've always had dinner conversations with him about it. So day to day today, I'm really focused on running my own company called Ahead. So it's a digital talent platform. We look and support those who are in their career transitions. And what it means is that, for example, those who are transiting from corporate to needing a bit more flexibility because their life stage changes. So many of our community are, for example, moms who are looking to change or return to work, or there are a few dads as well. So then in our community, we support them in understanding through a structured methodology, how does the transition or relaunch become easier? How can they be ready for it? How can they connect to companies that cares about work-life harmony? So we've been building this to work in Germany as well as in Singapore. So I think through the last couple of years, especially through COVID, lots of things have become digitized. And now we are able to also expand between these two regions with supporting members and over 4,000 individuals who have been through this journey with us, with different resources that we have looked into, that we have also learned from in the process. So that's kind of my day to day, trying to meet companies who are looking for that talent and who are willing to co-invest in supporting this group of individuals in their career journey, but also meeting and supporting individuals in that journey as well. So I've been feeling a good balance between what I want to do, the target market that I want to support, that I relate to as a mom, and how I could build their solutions to help them succeed in their own career life journeys.
Great. Thank you so much. It's great to hear the kind of impact that you've had from helping these moms transition back. And it's actually something that I've noticed really catch on, maybe because we're in Women's Month, but I think it's really much needed just thinking about how the economies are changing, tech companies and the layoffs and how it just really, all these confluence of factors seem to really push for the need to recognize that there's this huge talent pool to be tapped on. And I'm thankful for a company like yours doing the great work that you are doing. Also, really interesting how you have both Singapore and Germany in the work that you do. How does that work?
First of all, I have to say thank you. You know, your platform also supports, right, by sharing different stories and getting inspiration. That's how I learned as well. The why to end ahead, also just to add, you know, it's also because I had a mom who had a fantastic career and she had 3 kids, and then she decided to focus on us. So we got lucky in the sense of having a mom who is been always there, and my father as an entrepreneur who has that flexibility with us. So it was a very valuable time that I appreciated growing up. Singapore is always, you know, it's my home country, right? It's where I affiliate the most with. And when I wanted to become an entrepreneur, when I started studying and looking into different programs that can help me upskill to be one from a corporate employee, one of the things that I always wanted to do is to make sure that whatever I built, it could also at some point directly support those in the communities that I care about, including my friends, family back home, my networks back home, and also to work on building something that would positively help my kids in future. So I have 2 girls, and today in this month we're talking a lot about gender empowerment, female in leadership, and career is an important identity that helps any individual, right? Men or women have that also financial stability, independent, having that sense of purpose and the time that they spend working on things that they like to work on. And that's why Singapore was always in the equation. So to your question, you know, me being based in Germany means having the access to resources in Germany. So I have been based in a few cities. I moved to Berlin, for example, where I started to learn about entrepreneurship through a accelerator program for Founder Institute. Through that, the first ideation of the process took place, lots of discussions with individuals in this journeys took place. And naturally then, you know, Germany became where I could support the most. We started this whole process around end 2018, 2019. It's a pivot from my previous startup idea and looking also into lifelong learning. And then through COVID, because everyone moved digital, I was able to do much more than for Singapore. Through collaborations, we work also with the EDB and the Singapore Global Networks team, because lots of individuals who are career moms or moms at home in their parental leave, they are in the isolation phase, and we could together with, you know, the embassy here of Singapore, as well as these various organizations, collaborate in fact together to help that process, putting people together, having sessions that are virtual, providing the support network in terms of coaching and well-being as part of the important topic in this whole process as well. Work-life harmony should be a norm. It shouldn't be something that, oh, we need to do this. I hope for my kids in future. It's also a norm where you could play different roles and still be successful. So that's how the two, I think, regions came to place because of, you know, just practicality as well.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm finding it very interesting because your career path is so intertwined with your journey as a mom, I think, because it's one of the big reasons why you're doing this is obviously to support other people like yourself, right? Your identity as a working mom. So maybe if we can hear a little bit of your personal story. How did you, becoming a mother, change your perspective and your approach to work?
I think it has been in the beginning a very challenging journey. I knew I always want to be a mom. We tried for some time, quite some time also to have children. Back then I was based in Berlin when I had my first daughter. Being based in Berlin, where my husband's family is based in India, my own family is based in Singapore. we don't have the family extended networks. And, when we are young and not experienced in this part of life, we think, we could do everything. And I would say that was very difficult because, any help that we need is usually asking for a favor, which I learned later on that it's not a bad thing to ask for a favor, or paying someone to do the work, right? So when I had my first kid, we also thought for a while to think, okay, do we want to give our kid to someone we don't know to care for as part of the process? And for a long time, I was running quite low on my own energy. I was getting also a bit of postpartum blues. My husband was the same, lack of sleep can play very difficult, play things on your head. And sometimes we all see at this moment, then, oh my God, this hill in front of us is so big when he has a full-time work, I have a startup to build, no family close by, and then having kids and figuring out the German system with kids not speaking the language fluently was the initial challenge. Yeah. So, and that was very, very challenging because my startup back then was still in ideation. And I realized back then that work equates, for me personally, my identity. So now having that career phase and, life phase at the same point where it's the infancy, I think was very challenging because, you have so many questions. Oh, am I doing a good job as a mom? And am I doing a good job with my career? So when the two comes together, I think it was really difficult. And the first, I think, point of breaking was I got really ill, and then I realized the importance to get help in outsourcing some of the work, get help in outsourcing some of the child caring. My husband was traveling a lot, so both are necessary for my own personal well being as well. And then I hired interns for my work. I got a babysitter here. Actually, the first one was a Singaporean even. So, the extended Singapore overseas, one that I'm very thankful for. All of them became my extended family, even today, in both career and life. So I must say grateful for those support networks, being a foreigner and a foreign mom away from home.
Your story reminds me of my early days as a new mom overseas as well, where in Singapore we have the confinement nanny concept, where if we have someone living in, cooking for us, taking care of the baby for at least a month. But
Yeah.
obviously that's not a luxury that you have there. And it wasn't something I had either in the US. And in the end, it was my Malaysian neighbor who would cook, the herbs and give me soups every other day. And that was the sweetest time. It was the hardest time, but it was also really sweet. And I hear about counting on favors, but at the end of the day, they become your family of sorts, or a larger community.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I also had a supportive family whom we could schedule to come in different months. So the confinement was a good chance for the family to come in and meet their, grandkids when it comes to my parents or my parent-in-laws. But yes,
Right.
yeah, as you can imagine, it was not the easiest.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's also impacted your work after that. So can you share a little bit on how that being a mom and your identity shift was also helping you figure out your career, your startup?
Yeah, so I've had my first kid. I realized that time is precious. And when I say time is precious, it's also because of the situation, right? When there's a young kid that needs you, that young child that's totally dependent on you takes priority because there's no one else, it's just us, me and my husband. And then it made me really think how I should better spend my time. So I mentioned a bit earlier, I had a startup before. Building a startup is challenging in the sense that everything is new. You are not sometimes with a comfort zone, with a lot of resources, like as a corporate employee that you would get from the main company. And that means that I need to spend time on what makes sense. And I think that mindset kind of changed when my first daughter was born. I used to say yes to opportunities. And that's why I travel a lot because I would not say no. And someone say, Carol, go somewhere. Move to Abu Dhabi in 2 weeks, so those were kind of
Mm.
decisions to make because I love the adventure. I'm curious by nature, right? I like new cultures, new languages. But when I have a kid, I think differently. And then I start to think as a family unit. And then I start to think about is the best use of my time comparatively for myself, my well being, but also extended family and the communities, like I said, that I care about. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So hearing using your time more wisely and also having that purpose and making sure it's really laser focus on things that are closest to your heart.
Yeah.
Can you also share about your difficult times and darkest moments that you experienced? I think you share a little bit about it, but also share, what lessons you learned and how you got out of it.
Yeah, I think that period where I questioned my own identity is probably still the hardest. I think the 0 to 1 phase.
0 to 1 year old.
Well, it's great that you said that. So 0 to 1 year old for my kid, plus 0 to 1 year old for my startup. So I had two babies to take care of back then. So the important learnings is really have the perspective of where you really can make the best use of time. I can give like concrete examples, as a startup founder, it's important to think if I want my startup to succeed and make a real impact, where are the strengths that I have and where are the weaknesses that I have? And then work out, then if I had 2 hours, then what is the most important thing in that day for the 2 hours? Is it to talk to collaboration partners, to talk to corporate partners to get their buy-in? Is it to fundraise to get the process, or is it to sit down and do, for example, marketing LinkedIn post? I mean, we still think about this. Obviously, we are a small team. We still need to get our hands dirty. But as an entrepreneur and founder, I think more and more I learn to say no to things that I don't feel that is the biggest impact that I could create. So that 20/80 rule. As a mom, I think as a learning, the same thought process goes by, is my time best spent, cleaning up the house, or is my time best spent playing with my child? Is my time best spent going for a new experience with my child, or is my time best spent teaching my kids math? I don't have the perfect answer. But more and more, I start to think along these lines to say, what can we outsource? What can we automate as the process? What can we get help for? The mom and teacher relationship can be very different. So we also outsource, for example, the teaching process because we realize that she sees us differently. I have two kids now, so they both, we are involved in their learning journey, but we also don't want to spend all our time teaching them and sitting next to them doing homework, So I think for us as parents, it's important that they trust in us and we play with them. So as a mom, that process is also very important as part of the learning and learning not to say no to help and learning to say that, okay, we are humans, we can fail and, we should be kind to ourselves and enjoy the process, but also say, hey, I need help. And I realize the most successful people, whether as a parent or as a successful business or career individual, are the ones who really know the best things that they can contribute and the best people that they can go to for support and not being afraid to ask for that support.
It's quite fascinating that the lessons cut across both your experience as an entrepreneur and as a mother. And I've heard it said before in the 3Ds: what to do, what to dump, what to delegate. And
Absolutely.
yeah, this will be a great takeaway for me as well, walking away from this conversation, that
Yeah.
it's really, I think what you said about the time being much more precious, especially with more kids as well. It really resonates. I think it's just very clear that it's a resource that I want to be most careful about and thoughtful about. So thanks
Mm,
for sharing
yeah.
those great tips.
No, I can add one more D. I think that I love the 3D. So what to dump? Was it the first one?
Or what to do, or what to dump, and what to delegate.
What to delegate and what to digitize. So that is the 40. Because because I learned that in process, I think it was the 3 A's, but automation was one, but you can call it digital
Mm.
because lots of things, in today's world can be automated, such as ordering groceries online, having them delivered. In Germany, we have something called Hello Fresh. I had a mahjong session with some Singaporeans recently, and they was like, I ordered a couple of times a week. It comes in, no brainer. Then either they cook or their husband cooks. Like, why didn't I think about this before? Automating the process, just the simple things of getting a meal out where, as long as the food is healthy, it doesn't matter who does it and what the process is, right? If the financial budgets also make sense, then obviously for the companies, what can we build into digital process like payments, for example, is one we digitize a lot when we do coaching with individuals, so they can book a time digitally, for example. So the fourth D, yeah.
Digitize. I like that. I like that. All
Yeah.
right. So let's kind of change gears here a little bit, Carolina. I want to jump in and talk a little bit about and ahead. so fascinated that you have built this platform that also, crosses countries and continents. I want to hear if you have observed any cultural differences between the women and maybe the employers, both in Singapore and Germany.
Yeah, so I think look, people are have similar needs, right? So everyone in both countries, one are ambitious, like they want to also make it work and life. They want to care for their family, their kids. So there are a lot of commonalities. The differences that what we've learned throughout the years of talking to both individuals and companies via the And Ahead platform in one-to-one discussions or online, etc., is that structurally the two countries are structured quite differently, and because of that, people are also forced then to plan their life and work differently. So one example in Germany, it's been quite a social country, and that means that they are doing a lot of infrastructure in a sense to support men and women in having a child because they will need to improve or increase also the rates, birth rates. And that having said that, here the couples, both men and women can choose, which I think is a fantastic thing to take, 14 months. And with the 14 months off, you are able to bring your kid to an age of, beyond 1 year old before they go into the education system. You don't get, the full compensation, but the person who's taking the time off gets around 60% of the salary or a certain amount, whichever is lower. So then, people tend to plan around that. And with that being said, then, the couples, in majority still the women who takes the child caring responsibility, men usually takes 0 to 2 months. So that's the statistics here, would then have a bigger gap when it comes to career back to work. So a lot of companies are struggling here. For example, one of the big four companies that we are talking to find it very hard to find female partners at the partner level because the drop off is that, okay, you have this stage where you become a parent. You're generally around in the 30, similar to Singapore, in the late 20s, 30, early mid 30s age, getting older as well. This is what the statistics have shown. And then, they realize the importance and the time needed for family. They drop off because, working with consultancy is also very stressful in that point of career. And then they lose then the female leaders within those organizations. So consulting is one. We talk also to the healthcare group, healthcare sector, finance sectors, and they are all trying to make that quota. So in Germany, for example, if you're a public listed company, you need to have 20% at least minimum of females in the boards and C levels. So this regulation has pushed the female leadership up. We don't know in the long run if this, would make sense really to drive true gender diversity, but it has increased the numbers of females in boards from this quota system also regulated by the government. Singapore, on the other hand, because, we are always proud to be also business friendly country, right? We want to make sure that businesses can flourish, that companies are able to have also the flexibility of talent. And so, the system of 4 to 6 months of childcare is the max. And as the cost comes in are rising more and more, it takes two income for usually a family for it to make sense for a family. And so there in Singapore, the members that we have been discussing also with is really, I am ambitious, I have my purpose, I have my passions, I want to continue to learn. How do I make it work without burning out? So that well-being approach of how can I still, continue growing career, but yet still get the flexibility, get understanding, not get unconscious biasness from the society. In the last point, it's the same with both countries. How can we make it work? So I think the two countries are kind of different in nature, but the commonalities are we are individuals. Many of us in this community are moms. We know that we are smart. We are able to make things work, build things, lead companies, lead teams. But how can we, balance the two is I think the same goal there, regardless. And companies, one thing, then that diverse talent in both countries. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, I mean, this is a very timely, interesting topic, especially with the latest stats in Singapore, where birth rate has fallen to its lowest ever. I think it's 0.9 or something like that. And Singapore is not historically a place where you would expect, very strong sort of leave policies, parental leave policies. So I wonder if that might be something that might change going forward.
I think any change needs to be structural, right? So it's not just the individual, but it needs also to come from the perspectives of the employers plus the society. If the organizations, they're hiring individuals, having them work 40 hours work week with them, but yet do not get an understanding of how to help their employees make it work through this life stage transition. And life stage transition doesn't need to be family with kids, right? It could also be family taking care of elderly, the individual getting old themselves, as they reach, a different stage in retirement, closer to retirement. If organizations don't plan ahead and be supportive and understanding of this phase, leaders not understanding that this is a phase that they need to not penalize individuals for. So when I say penalize, for example, we've heard of organizations who don't promote individuals who took part-time work. And that lady was unfortunately not included in the next promotional activity because someone doing part-time, probably she's not serious, right? So conversations like that, I think, are not healthy. And as long as this continues, um, it is really difficult, I think, for then the couple to say, I want to have more kids because, I need to make sure financially it works, but also career it works. Then I think the second thing is, how can we not penalize the fathers or the other party, right? So in the traditional, men, women family, the father's coming in and playing a role there and also allowing them time off without the discrimination. So on the other side of the coin is here, for example, in Germany, and now I've heard more and more in Singapore, men are also trying to say, okay, what if I'm the one that's staying at home? Do I get the same support? Do I get the same networks? Do I get the same community? What if, at some point I work together with my spouse where one can fly, the other take the family, and then after that you do the switch? Wouldn't that be healthier? So I think this 2 point is where I personally feel, obviously, there needs to be a lot of thought that goes into it, and what other policies that could be put in place needs to be better looked deeper into and rethought so that this can, it should work. What I have
Yeah.
to should work, and it should not be a very challenging process for everyone.
So we have a lot of listeners who are working moms, obviously, and quite a lot of us are thinking about going back to work after maybe taking a break to, care for kids. What is, that one thing that you would advise someone like myself, going back to work after taking a break?
I think the most important thing is to let go of the fear of coming back to work because, and I've experienced it not in a large gap, but the few years where I was trying to think how do I, establish myself as an entrepreneur. I was not in the typical, corporate environment where I have my brand to a company, my identity type of company. I was, on my own building a setup. So even in that few months, I could feel that identity crisis and that lack of confidence goes down. So when we have discussions, myself, my co-founder based in Germany, based in the US, when we have discussions across any country, first step is, as someone that if you really want to return, don't listen too much about what people around you say negatively. Talk to the ones that can give positive advice and give constructive advice. Also not to, beautify it so that they set unreasonable expectations, but really to come in and say, okay, yes, you are away from work, but you had also years of experience. Many of our community members are also well educated. If they're not, then, what can you do to upskill and get into networks that support? It doesn't need to be an ahead. It could be other organizations such as, Lean In is one that I counted on personally for support. In my case, extended Singaporean network that I'm here. One of my current corporate partner, who is also a personal advisor, she also started her own company in Singapore. So, we exchange different experiences and then just take one small step. Don't overthink the process. Take one small step. What does that small step means? Is it talking to one person, talking to a close friend that can help you with the step-by-step confidence boost? And then do it in consistent steps to take further. Some days can be difficult and, have a cup of tea, think through and said, okay, today I'll do just one thing to move myself forward. applying for hundreds of jobs is sometimes very demoralizing. Not a lot of times we don't get feedback positively, but it doesn't mean that the job is not, we are not good for the job. It just means that there's no fit. And I think when you take the small steps with a supportive community, it makes the process more enjoyable. And it should be, because the next step of the career should also be fun, right? To look at you as a new person with new skill set, becoming a parent, and what can you do next? So that's why end ahead is called end right away, because it's a matter of, the end, right? How do we make work, or, three different things work: career, family, well-being, right? And also this end ahead, right? Is you take one step ahead instead of thinking the steps you need to do. And by then it's getting so exhausted in the process.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like it. Thanks for sharing that. So the three things that I heard are let go of that fear, embrace it, it's real, but also find your right cheerleaders, those who will give you good feedback, and then taking baby steps. And I like that it's actually the name of your company, and ahead, just taking one step ahead of the next.
I must say that people who are my cheerleaders are my professors from 20 years ago. So maybe the people around you are the cheerleaders that you're looking for. So, Prof. Aniko, whom we both know, she told me once, and I still remember her today. So if she's listening to a podcast, this is my shout out and gratitude to her. She said, I'm there to be your cheerleader. And I didn't realize the significance of that statement. So simple. All it takes is that someone that believes, right, and cheerleads, and can be a professor from 20 years ago.
That's sweet. Yeah. And one thing I learned about cheerleading is that the job of cheerleader is actually when the sports team is actually doing poorly. It's when you need to cheer even more. That's when their job is really meaningful. Like you need to rouse the club and the sports team. You also need to rouse the audience, right, or the supporters. And so that was a good takeaway. That it's not just for when you're doing well and you're like people saying well done, but it's really like, no, you're following and you're behind, but it's okay. You can do it. I believe in you. So
absolutely. And you got it exactly, the right point. That, ups and downs, find your cheerleader and don't let the naysayers get to you, because in the end, they don't matter. So the ones that matter will cheerlead, and then, you enjoy the journey with them.
Thank you so much, Carolina. I have one last question for you. And there's one thing you want listeners to take away from your story. What would that be today?
Don't give up. Life is not the easiest, but, I think we all deserve to be happy, deserve to succeed. Yeah.
That's great. Keep going and take one step ahead of the next.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Carolina. This was a fun conversation. Really love learning more about your story and your organization, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you for listening to Make It Work, where we uncover inspiring stories of modern working mamas in Asia who have redefined their careers whilst putting family first. Please help others to discover the show by leaving a review and rating on wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to follow us on our socials, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Meanwhile, here's to you, making it work.